Welcome. If you are here for the ACE Mentor and Autodesk webinar to talk about the Make It Bridge contest, you're in the right place. So we are so excited you're here. My name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I work at Autodesk, and I'll do a formal introduction shortly when we begin our formal presentations. But for now, we wanted you to just get started warming up the chat. So one thing to let you know, in order to protect your privacy, the chat is set up in such a way that we, the hosts, that I'll introduce soon, we can see what you say in the chat. You just can't chat with each other. And we had to set up the privacy settings in that way, just to protect your privacy. So, but you can tell us, and Khalil is going to be sharing and voicing some of your questions and insights that you have as we move along with the webinar. So our question for you is there a building? So what's a building that's in your community that you feel connected to? So please let us know in the chat. And Khalil, you can just shout out if you hear anything interesting that people are sharing.
Ooh, someone said the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool. So we have someone from Los Angeles too. That's really cool. So it's an observatory. We were actually, Michael and I, we were all just talking about, he went on a hike recently and he was trying to see the stars. So it's cool to have a building that is specifically designed in order to help you see the stars. Other responses in the chat?
Ooh, the Botanical Garden in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, well, welcome, Cleveland. We're excited you're here as well. The Botanical Garden, that sounds beautiful. There's one in my community as well. I have Smith College is nearby where I live. And there's a beautiful botanical garden there. So it's so nice, particularly when it's like still a little bit chilly out, to go into the greenhouse and be able to warm up and see the flowers. So very cool.
Someone said a building for me would most likely be my high school or the historical building in a neoclassical, so like Shaker Heights.
Oh, wow. So thinking about the architectural style as well, and definitely school buildings it's a place where you return to over time. There's so many connections and relationships that you build in schools that it's really becomes kind of part of you and your identity.
We've got the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia.
Nice. Philly, welcome, Philly.
Someone said hello from Toronto.
Oh, hi, Toronto. Our Canadian neighbors can join the contest this year too. So I'm very excited about that.
We've got the House of Parliament in Ottawa.
Oh, very nice.
Yep, Sears Tower in Chicago, now known as Willis Tower in Chicago. Wow. And then someone said our home.
Oh, yeah, your home is a building you're definitely connected to. So that's a very good response. And I'm just excited. I love with the ACE students that you're joining from all over the place. You're everywhere. And that's so cool. So we're going to get started with the formal program very soon. Khalil, was there another response in the chat?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, good. All right, so keep doing what you're doing, and Khalil throughout this webinar is going to help kind of make your voices heard. During the webinar, we can't see you or hear your voices, but you can let us know what you're thinking or any questions that you have in the chat. So the theme tonight, so we're going to be talking about Make It Bridge, the Make It Bridge Challenge with Autodesk and also the ACE Mentor program. So my name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I will be the host of this webinar, and I am a youth program specialist at Autodesk. And we are so excited that you're here and joining us live for this exciting webinar. So our goals for this evening is we want to share with you some trends in emerging technology that will make you kind of think about exploring future careers. We also want to talk about how professionals in the construction industry, including also architects and engineers, use cutting edge technology and digital and green skills. So thinking about how you can use those skills and use technology in order to make a better world. We also hope, and this is kind of one of the main objectives, that you will discover resources that will enable you to build your technology skills, challenge yourself, explore careers, and find funding to continue your learning. So how to participate? You're doing awesome so far. So just let us know if you have questions at the end of each segment. We will answer your questions, and we'll also rally together for a question and answer session at the end. So do please feel free to ask questions if we're going too fast, or if you have a clarifying question, or even just kind of an interesting insight that you want to share. Khalil from the ACE Mentor Program, who is the Student Programming Director, will be voicing your questions in the chat. So Khalil, feel free also to interrupt me when I'm presenting or to wait at the end of the segments as well to ask questions. But thank you, Khalil. You're doing an awesome job. So our guests this evening too. So our featured presenter is Paulette Dallas, who's the ACE Senior Regional Director, will be presenting tonight. We are so excited to be joined by Michael Hidalgo, who is the 2022 Student Grand Prize winner from last year. He created the best physical prototype and also an amazing Revit model. So my name is Kellyanne Mahoney. Again, I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk, and my colleague Brandon Kramer, who's a research manager at Autodesk, will also be joining to talk about a special model that he designed that's part of our contest this year. So Paulette's going to be talking about what is ACE and how can you join. I'm assuming that most students here may be ACE students, but we did welcome students from anywhere to join. So Paulette is going to let us know more about the ACE program that I'm sure many of you know and love. Next up will be Michael Hidalgo, who's going to be talking about his entry and his process for how he created a winning entry last year for the contest. I'm going to provide you with some tips and hopefully some inspiration, particularly if you haven't gotten started yet, to kind of give you a sense and kind of help you wrap your head around what the design prompt is this year. And we're going to finish it off with Brandon Kramer, who's going to be talking about a really cool project that he worked on at Autodesk that was an inspiration for this contest. So just to begin, I'm going to provide you a little bit of introductory information about Autodesk, what we do, and also just what this contest is before we move into the presentations. So at Autodesk, we are a global software company. We empower innovators with design and make technology to achieve the new possible. The product at Autodesk that I primarily support is called Tinkercad. So Tinkercad is an easy program to get started with 3D modeling and design and more. You can design something small in Tinkercad, like a car. And then you could move on to a more professional tool like Fusion 360 in order to maybe, make the shapes more organic, to sort of fillet or add chamfers or to cross section or to apply physical materials and render. Brandon's going to talk a little bit about that tonight. You could design something you could think architecturally too in Tinkercad. So you might design a house or a room in Tinkercad. But then when you're ready to move on to a more professional tool, you might try out something like Formit, which I'll talk about a little bit tonight, and maybe use some of the computational design functions in Formit in order to design in creative and flexible ways using computation. You can also actually do computational design within Tinkercad in the code blocks environment. And maybe you might want to design a bridge in Tinkercad. And then you could export it as an animated GIF and show your thought process or your computational thinking. But from there, you might want to move on to a tool like InfraWorks, which is for a conceptual kind of design in civil engineering. I'll talk about it a little bit tonight. And maybe you want to place your bridge in a real location in order to run a traffic simulation, for example. One of the things I love the most about Tinkercad is that it really kind of puts the A in STEAM and really kind of helps students see how they can express themselves through STEM. But if you love that, you can even level up within Tinkercad. You can use the augmented reality feature in order to immerse yourself in your designs. And if you really love designing little characters, for example, you might, move on to a more professional tool like Maya, which is used by animation professionals, and think about how you could, add rigging to your characters in order to make them move. So that's just kind of a summary of some of the offerings that we have at Autodesk, particularly for education. And one of the things that we think about when we're creating these offerings for students is who you are, so that we can think about how we can design experiences and programs in order to connect with you and your generation. And one of the things that we love about students these days is they are not satisfied with the status quo. So rather than accepting what is, they ask questions like, what if? So they might say, how can I innovate to design and make a better world? And we hear that word innovate, it sounds super fancy, but really all what it means is to add value, to improve the status quo, and also to make progress now. And when we say design and make at Autodesk, we really are kind of talking about three categories of things that you can make. So design for manufacturing and assembly, architecture, engineering, and construction, and also media and entertainment. But one of the things that we love about students, particularly students these days, is that they are connectors. So for us as adults, we might see these three buckets of things, but for you, you might naturally merge these fields and kind of see the connections that are already happening across these industries. For example, in construction, what can we learn from the manufacturing industry in order to, create building components off-site in a kind of factory model, and then bring them on site in order to make the project more affordable or more efficient. So you do that naturally, and that's one of the things that we love about you is you kind of see those connections. You also love to collaborate. And one of the things that when we think about problems in the industries that we serve, one of them is a lack of diversity. And one of the things that you realize as a generation is that we need, many perspectives in order to unlock solutions to some of these big problems that our society and our industries are facing. You're also curious doers, so you like to learn and make at the same things and really kind of get hands-on with your learning. You see problems as opportunities, and you're also caring. So you care about issues like environmental sustainability. You care about when we're thinking about designing these awesome new buildings and structures that they're accessible to everyone. So one of the ways that we try to partner with students is by providing software, so access to our professional tools for free. So Tinkercad is free for everyone, but you as a student and even your teachers have access to about 60 of our professional tools for free. So in terms of the offerings that we really kind of focus on for students, there's Tinkercad, which I've already talked about, Instructables, which is the platform that the contest is hosted on this year. So this is a place where you can not only enter contests, but you can also find cool step-by-step projects and inspiration. And then, maybe from Tinkercad, you want to move on to Instructables, but then from there you see a cool project that you think you might need something more advanced in order to, express the idea that you're trying to create. You might go straight from Tinkercad to Fusion 360. You might go back then to Instructables, or you might move on to, different products like Revit, which I'm sure some of the ACE students are familiar with. So we also try to partner with students in order to help them kind of think about and explore important questions like how can I find purpose and make a difference through a career in manufacturing and or construction. One of the ways that we do this is for the past several years, we've partnered with professional athletes, particularly James Devlin, who used to be the fullback for the New England Patriots, but he studied mechanical engineering actually before he joined the NFL. And he's been working with us in order to inspire students to think about futures, particularly in the building industry. So last year we did this contest that Michael is going to talk about tonight that was called Make It Modular. And it was inspired by James Devlin. When he retired from the NFL, he decided that he wanted to open up a smoothie and coffee cafe inside a shipping container. So that was kind of the inspiration for last year's contest, is we asked students to kind of reimagine a new purpose for upcycling something like a shipping container. So these are some of the cool projects. We were amazed and just so totally blown away by what students created. So you can see Michael's design on the right, which he'll talk about, which was affordable housing. Some students designed outdoor classrooms. They designed community spaces. And one of the things that we really also appreciated about the designs that they shared was not only their end products, but also their process, and just even showing, through multiple ways in different media, how the whole project came together and what their whole thought process and their design process was. So last year we offered $100,000 in scholarship awards and micro grants to students who are interested in exploring construction career paths. So we ended up we couldn't give away all of the money. So we hope this year we're able to give away all $100,000. We did empower 84 young people on the path to construction related careers. 57% of the recipients planned to enter the building trades directly from high school. And of those recipients, 45% attend a school where the majority of students are people of color or come from low-income households. So this year, we're hoping to have even more students take part. And one part of the Make It Real program is this Make It Bridge contest. So in the Make It Bridge contest this year, hosted on Instructables, we're giving away 2 $10,000 scholarship awards, 4 $5,000 scholarship awards, and 10 $1,000 scholarship awards, in addition to runner-up prizes that are $50 gift cards. The design prompt this year is to rethink a gap that exists in your community by designing a new structure or space that includes a pedestrian bridge to offer something more for the people and places it connects. So this year, we're also partnering again with James Devlin, and also he is joined by Connor Clifton of the Boston Bruins, and that he also studied engineering before he joined the NHL. And they created this awesome video series for us that's part of the program, where they visit a real construction site and meet the people who make a building project come to life, and also interact with some interesting technology along the way. So this is just in Tinkercad, and I think it's cool because we have a simulator now. So this is where you'll find all the information about the contest. So this is autodesk.com/makeitreal. So this is the video series that we did with James and Connor. This is the one that we did last year called Make It Modular with James. It's still there. So you can find technology, tech tutorials, microfunding, career exploration. This is where you can learn more about the Make It Bridge Scholarship Award and go to the contest page. So if you click there, it takes you to the contest page. So you can see the videos that are there. There's another video about the project that Brandon is going to be talking about. There's a starter model. And on that page, you can also find the application for micro grants. So in addition to this contest, we're also giving away $50,000 in $500 micro grants that are meant to support students, particularly who are entering the building trades in their transition from high school.
We had a question and answer in the chat.
Sure. What is it?
So the question was, is there a requirement like one software over the other, or can I use AutoCAD and Revit in unison?
You could use AutoCAD and Revit in unison. You can use any, you do need to use a Autodesk product in order to create your submission, but you could do a combination. You could, some students just did their design in Tinkercad, and that was totally fine. I think we had a couple of runner-ups who actually won just using Tinkercad. You could use a combination as well. And I'm actually going to show you an interesting workflow that is InfraWorks to either Revit or Format. So we also are going to be hearing from Brandon tonight about this cool project that he worked on with our colleagues at Autodesk in our technology center in Boston. So this is a project that combined additive manufacturing. This bridge, the pedestrian bridge, was created in the building materials recycled polymers. Brandon used a generative design process in order to create the model. We needed to use robotics in order to build the model. So this robot arm actually has an extruder in order to 3D print the bridge. The people who made it needed to know how to code and do computer programming in order to operate the robot. It's actually, I think, milling there, but they did 3D print. And then there's sensor technology. So sensors were embedded in the bridge in order for its future use, in order for the bridge to be able to continue to tell information, but also sensor technology was used in the construction of the bridge as well. So Brandon will talk more about that. And it was an interdisciplinary project. So he'll talk about the different members of his team that he worked with in creating this beautiful bridge. And I'll also show you a little bit in Tinkercad and just kind of how the beginnings of this whole process that Brandon engaged in or all exist within Tinkercad. So any other questions, Cleo, before we move on to Paulette's presentation?
Let me check. We just got a chat. It says, oh, someone's joining in as an ACE mentor.
Oh, cool. Awesome. And we did welcome educators and mentors to the webinar so that they can share this information with students too. So thank you and welcome.
This person says, is this competition allowed to be facilitated with our local ACE mentor chapters to help mentor students through the competition, or is the competition individual to students without the support of mentors?
Mentors can help students when they're working on their projects and missions, kind of similar to the way that they do with ACE. So that's totally fine.
And that was the last question.
Awesome. Well, we're going to move on then to talking about ACE. So Paulette, please take it away.
Hello, everybody. I am going to still the screen and start presenting. So thank you everybody for joining. I know a lot of you are with ACE, and so thank you for that. We're super excited to be partnering with Autodesk on this. There's so many fun things that you could be doing with this, with this competition. So we're really, really excited for that. And let's see. So this is our mission at ACE: to engage, excite, and enlighten high school students to pursue careers in architecture, engineering, construction through mentoring, and to support their continued advancement into the industry. I especially love ACE because it's for any student. If you're on your college path, fantastic. We've got support for you. If you want to skip college for whatever reason, we have support for you. We've got scholarships, externships, all kinds of things to help you get into our industry. So it's free to any student across the country. ACE is also, it used to just be during the school year, 18 to 20 weeks, but we're really trying to ramp up the year-round engagement. So having contests like this to kind of supplement what we're doing during the program year. We've got a lot of summer camps. Khalil's got a few camps that she's going to put into the chat that we still have some room in. We have summer externships that you can get paid for, and what all of our students love doing is site tours. Everybody wants to get on construction sites. So we do a lot of that. We do office visits. We just really want to introduce students to every aspect of the built environment. There's so many different career paths and paths to get into the construction industry. So we're here to show you all of those things. ACE has, we're all over the country. So you can see all those dots on the map right there. That is where we have ACE programs. So you can see there are some locations where we do not have ACE programs, and Khalil is heading up a brand new virtual program across the country. So any student from anywhere in the country can actually get involved. We do have virtual programs in some of our other affiliates. So if any time, please reach out to us. We want to make sure that ACE is for you. We also have some resources that are open to any student as well, if they would like to go onto our website and look for those. Those are open for any student to use as well. Here are a few different stats too. I know Kellyanne talked about a few of these, but I'm pretty proud of our diversity in the program. In addition to these stats, we have about 40% female students, which is much, much higher than the number of females in the industry at this point. So we hope that we'll continue to get more and more students interested in the construction industry. There are tons of jobs in this industry for you. As soon as you either graduate from high school or college, there is lots of opportunity in these fields. And some people think about construction just what you see on the side of the road, but that's a very small part of it. That part is also very important. The building and the crafts people that are participating in all of the building of all of our communities. We all can look outside and see a lot of building going on, but there's also lots of other opportunities within the construction industry. There's business development, there's marketing, there's the list goes on and on and on. So so give it a try. Definitely check out the offices, ask a lot of questions. Everybody that mentors for ACE really loves talking about ACE. They are there to share their views, share their stories, give you their past. That's the thing I love the most, is learning how people actually got into construction. Every single person has a different path. I was a fifth grade teacher, and now I'm here in this industry. So everybody has a different path on how they got here, but it's just a very welcoming industry with lots and lots of opportunities, for the future. So how to get involved? This is the map of where we have a map that you can click on our website, and it will show you where there are affiliates located near you. If there is not one near you, or you are not able to participate, please reach out. These are the country is divided up into 3 sections, but also with Khalil on, she's the director of student programming, so she covers the entire country. You can reach out to her with any questions. She loves hearing from the students as well. She's also an ACE alum, so I love sharing that about her. Here are our email addresses. If you need to contact anybody at all, we love hearing from our students. Anytime that you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love hearing from you, and we want to help you with this. We have, like Kellyanne said, we have lots of scholarships, we have lots of externships, lots of opportunities for you all to get involved in this industry. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kellyanne.
Awesome. Thank you, Paulette. I want to join ACE now.
I know, I wish I had it when I was in high school. That's for sure.
Me too. Khalil, any questions so far?
There are a few questions. Let's see. Is this open to college students under 21? And I think that's about the competition. Not
Unfortunately, no. So you must be secondary. So you must be 13 or older in high school or secondary, but not college.
Okay. And then we will be sharing this presentation. It's going to go on the ACE YouTube site, on our ACE YouTube channel. That's what they're called. Wow. Let's see. And then a student let us know that they had that ACE was amazing for them, and that they had their presentation night last night and they had a great time.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic. I know it's a lot of work. So thank you for joining our webinar tonight.
And then in the chat, I put the summer camp information that Paulette was alluding to earlier. And that is everything.
Awesome. And the way that we structured our contest this year and even last year was meant in a way that, maybe you have a design that you've already been working on that you could kind of reimagine to fit this prompt. So next up, so excited to introduce Michael Hidalgo, who's going to talk about his story of how he won the contest last year, but also learned so much in the process as well. He has an amazing story. So Michael, you want to take it away?
Hi everyone, I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Hold on. So here I'm just going to give you all a bit of information about me. I won last year for the physical prototype, technically. I think my digital model was great, but my physical model was what got me. Oh, I'm moving the slide, sorry. Okay, that's not important. So anyways, I am a freshman. Sorry, not a freshman, a sophomore. I just forget. I just finished my freshman year at Miami-Dade College. I was the winner, and I participated in ACE in high school. Do not take Paulette lightly when she says participate in the externship programs. I participated my junior to senior year in the externship program with Turner Construction, and it was an amazing experience for me. I learned so much. Probably like many of you, I was super scared and I wasn't going to do it. But when I heard about it, I told my mom I was going to do it. And then that kind of like forced me to do it because now she knew. So I had someone to hold me accountable. But definitely take advantage of those if they have them in your area. If after this presentation, any of you have any questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You could send me any chats or anything if you want to know anything regarding your entry, your college, anything that might help you guys. Down here is the link to last year's contest page, not necessarily mine, but if you go to this link, you'll be able to find all of them, and mine will be there if you guys want to have a basis of the different kinds of entries. So my idea really revolved around a site. I didn't know, so let me step back a bit actually. So first I received the email from ACE, which is how I found out about the scholarship and about the scholarship program in the first place. And when I saw it, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. We had to design something using a container, and I had seen some stuff using containers on HGTV and tiny homes, so I knew I probably wanted to do something around that. But my inspiration really struck when I was driving along this road right here. Can you guys see my mouse? Yeah, okay. So I was driving right along here, stopped probably right here in this intersection, and here I saw a homeless person, and it was really sunny outside just in the morning, and I felt really bad. And since I passed by here, I know the parking lot here is super empty because this is a cosmetic surgery place. Um, so I thought that land is just going to waste and it could be put to better use. So that's where I came up with my idea, which is to create containers that could be moved around that don't necessarily require power or anything utilities, so they could be moved around and placed in different locations. But before I was able to complete my entry, of course, I was super confused. I had no idea what to do. I used Revit to ultimately create my entry, but I had no idea how to use Revit. But I'll get to that later. So this was the first part. I went ahead and I did like little rough sketches. I went ahead and put like some pertinent dimensions I should have known. Just got like basic ideas of what I could do. Um, I think this one was the one I chose. Yeah, this is the one I chose. Well, sort of, not exactly like this, but this is the one on the bottom left is the one I chose. But this is a stage where you'll just like get ideas and not be, it'll won't be necessarily what you do, just so you have an idea of what you'll do. See, I got a bit ahead before. I started using Tinkercad. Um, I know Kellyanne is a big advocate for Tinkercad, but Tinkercad wasn't for me. So I tried I tried using Formant and I kept getting confused with SketchUp, which is tragic because it's not an Autodesk product. So then I just went ahead and I said, let me just do Revit. I decided on Revit because I know Revit could do some amazing renders, and I knew I wanted nice renders. So Revit was what I chose. You don't necessarily have to use Revit. Any Autodesk product would work, or as long as you incorporate an Autodesk product, your entry would be eligible for the contest, but Revit was the best option for me. As I said, I didn't know how to use Revit, so I had to watch a lot of YouTube videos and tutorials to figure out how to learn it. They're all available there online on YouTube. If you guys want to learn, the resources are there and you can. And if you encounter any errors, which I encountered many during mine, it'll give you like a little error message which you could just Google and you'll figure out how to fix whatever you're doing wrong like pretty easily. I was gonna share this video, but I don't think I can. My Wi-Fi is really bad. So let me
Can see
talk
it on
about,
this site. Michael, they can see it on the site, right? Your video.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
on my Instructable.
Awesome.
It's just like the process I took, the process you would take to construct the actual model. You don't have to do that for the actual contest, but it's just something I did extra that I think probably made my entry stand out a bit. Um, I encountered a lot of issues with my physical model, which is what I'll be talking mostly about since that's what I went for. When I was designing my, constructing my model, I encountered so many issues. Well, first of all, I did not know what I was doing, and I had to make a container. So I was like, how do I make the corrugations on a container to make it look realistic? Because I didn't just want to have a container with flat walls and then my physical model, I mean, my digital model not having that. It just didn't make sense to me. So right from the get-go, I knew I had to think about that. And ultimately, I decided to corrugate paper to create this. I have some pictures a bit more ahead, and you'll be able to see what I did. But I really just like scored it lightly to create this, like to bend it without like creating little creases. But then once I did that, I encountered other issues like it's not gluing, or how do I create like intricate gutters? Ultimately, I couldn't do it, which is like why they're so messy, or things weren't straight. Like this is super sideways. It was just so many issues that ultimately I couldn't resolve, but I knew I had to do the best I could. See, so this is me experimenting with the little corrugations. So I did like a little piece just to like get the idea of what I was doing. But before, okay, yeah, so that's how I did that. And then after I did that, before I did anything else you see here, I had to determine what scale I was going to do. And for your bridge this year, you'll have to do the same thing. You'll need to know how big you want to your physical model to be. It could be like this small, this big. However, mine is pretty big. Mine is like 2 feet, like this big. It's super huge. It's just occupies a huge portion of my room because I haven't wanted to throw it away. I feel bad even recycling it. But you'll also want to determine how the scale, and when you determine that scale, you want something that's convenient to work with. You don't want something too small that you can't like work around with your hands because it'll just not be very feasible. Um, yeah, sorry, the chat threw me off guard. So I'll answer questions later, or maybe Kellyanne will want to answer that question, but we saw it. So sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so you want a scale that will be convenient. I personally chose 1 inch equals 12 inches because I found out that's a popular scale for dollhouses, which when you're designing a bridge, I'm not sure how convenient a dollhouse would be for you, but maybe in terms of trees or something, you might find something, a scale that will be convenient to design your bridges. But I knew that 1 inch equals 12 inches would be easy to convert for me to actually build it using my digital model because I did make my digital model before I made my physical model. I found that personally to be the easiest way, just creating what I had already done. And it's basically just trying new things. I had no idea what I was doing the entire time. So don't look at this and get intimidated because when you just put pictures, it looks like he already knew what he was doing. I had no clue. So don't be scared. You'll figure it out as you get there. In one of the previous slides, I put get started as soon as you can. I think I started my entry even before this time last year because I think we had this webinar a bit earlier. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, start early. And by start, I don't mean building your model. I just mean watching videos or whatever, doing research, Googling. I'm sure at this time, many of you have like AP exams. So if you can't, don't worry, you'll be fine. But just here and there, it'll help you out if you just start. Okay, so for bridges, I have thought of some ideas I think will be pretty cool. So the most obvious is 3D printing. I personally did not do any 3D printing in my entry, not because I didn't have any 3D printers at home. I probably could have accessed some at my high school, but I didn't want to go through that. And since technically Instructables is a platform where other people can get ideas, I acknowledge that not everyone has access to a 3D printer, so I wanted something everyone else could replicate. But another idea I have for you guys is like maybe you can make something out of wire coiling it, but that could get quite expensive. So I'm not sure if you guys would want to do that unless you have like an abundant supply of wire just laying around. Or you can do paper mache. You can create an armature out of cardboard or whatever. Get some paper mache paste. It's pretty inexpensive. Newspaper, dip it, put it on. It'll dry. There will be no seams. It'll look amazing if you paint it or whatever. You could also paper mache around a wire, something made out of wire, like you see here. So that's another option. There's so many options. There's carving in high school. I remember I carved using plaster. I poured in a milk jug, and then I just used tools like carve away a design. I did not want to take pictures of what I did, but I did like little swans and I carved the heart in the middle. But something you can do for a bridge it's just very dusty, so I recommend probably wearing a face mask. And the tools, you would probably have to get them. Just be careful with that. If any of you want to do it, you don't have to. There's woodworking as well, and so many other options that I probably haven't even thought about. So probably going to be very amazed. So if you win the scholarship, or even by attempting to enter this contest, you will learn a lot and you will be motivated to continue learning. Of course, there's the money, and you can add it to your resume. Frankly, in my experience, no one knows what it is on my resume. So I usually have to explain it to them, but it's a really great conversation starter because people recognize Autodesk and what Autodesk means. So they love that. This entry, it has really like fueled me, and it gave me motivation in a way because I was entering at first, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll win the runner-up prizes or something. I did not expect to win the grand prize, even though I like really tried. But if you put yourself out there and you try your best, it really helped me out. Like it motivates me to do more things. I think if I would not have done all that work, like right now I'm in Washburn, Tennessee, on an earth literacy experience, trying out sustainable living and being more in touch with nature. I don't think if I wouldn't have done this contest, I probably wouldn't be here because I wouldn't have been motivated to do so, just because I wouldn't have put myself out of my comfort zone back then, and then that would have probably continued into now. So I really recommend doing this. I'm sure a lot of you are scared. I was scared. You probably think you're not going to win. I thought I wasn't going to win. Just try, do your best. You if you want to, you will probably do amazing. Just try. And then of course, um the money is amazing. It will help you in your school because in high school, pretty much everything is free. To do your math homework, they give you the Pearson access codes. You don't have to pay for your classes. Transportation is probably free, or unless you drive, maybe you work, but or your school is probably closer than your university, or maybe you guys are transferring out of state. I don't know what you guys are planning to do, but it really comes in handy when you're a college student to have that financial support when you don't really know what's happening to you. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to my presentation. So if Kellyanne wants to take the screen back, and then we might have some questions.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was inspiring. It makes me want to enter the contest now too, but I can't because I work for Autodesk and I'm not in high school. But you so much inspiration and encouragement, and I loved how you talked about your process. And when I looked at your entry, I was like, wow, like this is amazing. But then when I started to read kind of deeper into your whole story, that was kind of part of what I think that compelled the judges and I to really recognize all the hard work and all the effort and all the learning that you put into your entry. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Michael. Khalil, are there any questions for Michael or just questions in general?
Yeah, there's a question, like a general question about the competition. Does it need to be a bridge, or can I connect physical spaces together using a pedestrian bridge?
Yeah, so that was actually the essence of the warm-up question as well. So the theme and kind of just the overall, I'm going to get into this in the next section, but the overall kind of thinking behind the prompt this year is just thinking of ways that you can build connection in your community. You can use the bridge model that is in the contest, on the contest webpage. You can design your own bridge, or you could choose an existing building in your community. You could use the bridge that is on the web page, and then you can design something new on the other side of the bridge. So it needs to include a bridge in some way, but you don't necessarily have to, you can use the bridge as a starter model, if that answers your question. And I'll make it a little bit more clear too in the next section.
And that's it on questions.
Awesome. All right, so hopefully this will give you a better sense too of what we're looking for your contest entry. And we have James Devlin to help us out with it in front of the Zakin Bridge in Boston. So your design should be relevant to one or more of the following uses. And this is really kind of when Michael was telling his story about walking. I think he said he was walking to school, but he saw a person who was homeless, and he thought about the contest and making that connection to, this kind of emotional reaction that he had to seeing someone suffering. So when you're thinking about your entry this year, you're using design to make a better world. So it might be through your design might strengthen civic life or social infrastructure in some way. Your design might connect people. Maybe there's an elderly housing complex in your community where the people don't really like go outside and mingle with the rest of the community, but maybe there's a way that you can take that building, add a bridge to it, and maybe the bridge is connecting to a community garden, or it's connecting to some kind of like landscaped space, or maybe it's a Boys and Girls Club or something like that. So thinking about how you can bring people together through the building that you're designing. It could promote a deeper relationship between humans and nature. I have an example actually that I'll share next. Or just thinking about increasing accessibility or a sense of belonging for a user group. So how could you incorporate a bridge into a design that could, in some way increase access to a community resource for people in your community? One of the places that I like to go, when I'm thinking about, inspiration for things, DZine is actually a really cool magazine that has like really great imagery. So I just pulled these images from DZine, and you can see, interesting use of materials. So you can see this was a carbon fiber bridge on the lower left-hand corner. It's just kind of a footbridge from a building. So your bridge could be, something that's just connecting two buildings, or it could be, going across a highway that you see in the Gary Bridge that's kind of in the upper left corner. It could be it could be a bridge that has like a park in the middle, for example. So a lot of interesting examples and kind of construction methods. The upper left-hand corner was a Zaha Hadid design, and it was 3D printed concrete, but it was assembled using like ancient masonry techniques, which is kind of cool. This is an example, I think this is in the Netherlands, but it's a bridge that's designed to also have a dual purpose of housing for bats. So thinking about how you can, your design can bring together humans and nature. This was a great example, and I thought it had cool images as well. So I have a link. There's some links that Khalil has that she can share in the chat too. Or it could be something as simple as like, this is an example of a historic house in a community, like a historic building that was a public building, that then there's a bridge that's used to connect it to a more modern kind of space. So bridges as kind of a theme, but not as, it doesn't have to be, something grand, although this one is pretty cool. This is in Providence. And I found this one really inspirational, which is a bridge across the river there, and it has a park in the middle. So I do encourage you, like Michael talked about, doing research. Your research could include just like seeing inspiration in other examples of design. So again, this is the contest page. This is where you can find the starter model. So if you scroll down the page and then click here, and then you do copy and tinker, and then you can find the bridge. So we actually do have a link in the Tinkercad file. There's a link to the Fusion model as well. In doing this, I was like, well, I'm going to try doing it myself in Tinkercad. So this was my attempt at just kind of making design. So I, kind of switching between tabs because I have a lot of shapes in that first one with my context. But even if you're going to use Tinkercad just to start out and play with shapes, like what I was doing here was I was thinking about like making something that kind of was, almost kind of organic. The shape of the bridge itself kind of made me think of like nature and kind of thinking about like sea life as well. So this is my feeble attempt in Tinkercad. And one of the lessons that I took away from it is I spent so much time on the setting when my focus actually for my design was the bridge, that I thought, well, there is actually a workflow that you can use that's free and you have access to using InfraWorks. So a combination of InfraWorks and then either Format or Revit. So someone asked, can you use multiple software programs in your design? You sure can. Our only requirement is that you use an Autodesk product as part of your design. So in here, so this is actually Format, and this is just an example of a design for like a construction site. But how did this 3D context get into the model? Well, it was through using InfraWorks. So this is Format right here. And if you go to autodesk.com/make-it-real, there's a narrated version of this video, but I'm just going to narrate over this. So this is in InfraWorks. You're going to go to Model Builder, and then you can just literally type in an address, crop the section that you want in order to grab the 3D contact. So this is Porter Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So from there, you're still in InfraWorks. So InfraWorks will then email you. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes, and they'll email you a link to a model of the location that you chose with 3D context. So there is that kind of 2D like site, but there's the buildings on top of it. So you might decide in InfraWorks, like I want to demolish that building and kind of build something new in the parking lot. So you can just click on things, both roads and buildings, and delete them. And then once you're happy with the way that the model is, you're going to export it. And I would export it in 2 parts. So you want to do it, the buildings first, and then you want to do the roads in like the 2D site second. So you would export it, and you're going to export it as an FBX file. So you're going to export it. In this way, you want to maintain the materials and textures. And that's when you use an FBX file, it keeps those materials and textures. So then secondly, you're going to do another one that just has the site layout and the roadways. So you just do share. And then once you have those 2 models, you can go back into Format, or you could do this in Revit as well. You would import it. So you're going to choose first, you're going to import it as layers. So you have the building layer, and then you're going to import the roads only. And then you're just going to click on the layers right there, and you'll see layer 1 and layer 2. And we recommend that you name them so you remember what they are. And then from there, you've got that 3D context. And you can also hide the layers. So hide, the road layer if you just want to work in the buildings, and vice versa. So I thought that was just a neat trick that you can use using that workflow. And again, you can find this video with a more detailed narration by our architect friend who works with us at Autodesk, Heather, where she kind of goes through other tips and skills in Format. And that's autodesk.com/make-it-real, where you can find more of this video. So any questions before we move on to Brandon's presentation about the bridge?
Can you do more than 1 entry?
I haven't, I think it's one, I mean, you can't win more than 1 prize, but I don't, that hasn't happened before, but you definitely can't win more than 1 prize. And I would suggest just working really hard on 1 entry.
Gotcha. And then someone wants to know, is InfraWorks free for us, and
Yes.
does it work on Mac?
InfraWorks is free through the education community. I don't think that you can get it on a Mac. It does, like it works. I think there's a web-based version of InfraWorks, but it would be easier to do it on a PC or to find a friend. It really, like the part in InfraWorks only takes, like 10 minutes or so. It takes like 5 minutes to email you the file, and then, whatever else that you need to do. So maybe there's a computer at school that you could load it onto as well.
All right. And that's all the questions. In the chat, I did drop in the link to a Google Doc that has some really cool links on it. So be sure to check that out.
Thank you, Khalil.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, so we're going to wrap up with Brandon talking about bridging gaps into the future. Take it away, Brandon.
Hello, everyone. Give me 1 second to steal the screen. So my name is Brandon Kramer. I'm a manager on the Autodesk research team. And just a very quick high level, Autodesk Research is a little bit different than the other product teams because our mission is to really explore, prepare, and lead. We, partner with a variety of different companies and academic institutions to find ways to de-risk, Autodesk future and the world's future with, different design and make workflows. So this is our website, and a little more about the project that Kellyanne has been speaking so much about can also be found here as well. So I can share this link afterwards. But here is our fearless leader, Peter Story, who was the lead project manager and collaborator for this project. And the outcome of this project was this amazingly created, generative design, additive manufactured robot 3D printed bridge. But the purpose wasn't to create a bridge. Our real goal is this quote by Peter here, which is, we're improving our workflows for 3D printing on a large scale, and that could apply to a broad range of industries and materials. Our main focus is to create proof of concepts around workflows that our customers can imagine for themselves. So, we're not a bridge company, we're a software company, but we want our customers to imagine the types of things that they can do with their software. And this just happens to be one of those examples. But it wasn't just Peter and myself alone. Down here, there's a bit more information on the broader team that supported this. In the video, you'll see, I believe, Fope, James, Stephanie, and maybe several others speaking about their experience here. And I'll just shift over to more information about the bridge. So into the details of what this bridge is all about. We constructed a 5-meter long 3D printed bridge. And if you've ever 3D printed something, you might have seen it on a small scale. So 3D printing something at this, this large, this big, as you could imagine, took quite a while. So it took roughly 200 hours spread out over 5 weeks. And the reason why this took so long is we had to print it, more or less at an angle to replicate how we would want it to be built in its environment. So if you would imagine this robotic arm shows up at a ravine, it starts on one side of it and it prints over a river. That's the type of vision that we were, thinking of with the customer Dara at the same time. The bridge is not only a static object, but it also has some embedded sensors with the purpose of, identifying and knowing when it's in use, knowing when there's a potential risk of failure, knowing when, even during the printing itself, knowing how the printing is doing. So we had some thermal sensors to analyze the temperature of the material to make sure that it was extruding at the right temperature, to make sure that the layer that was printed before was at the right temperature as well, so that we had as much adhesion as possible to make sure this bridge was as strong as possible. Here are some pictures of the internal structure itself, and this is where I came into play. So I was one of the people who were on the design and design and simulate side of the bridge. The inside of it is filled with a gyroid structure, and the purpose of that is really about lightweighting while also keeping a lot of internal strength to the bridge. It was designed in a way that it could have been, totally hollow, but that wouldn't allow it to be printed. So we knew that we needed some type of internal support structure to allow it to be printed, to allow it to remain lightweight, but still create in a very way that would be very structurally sound. And lastly, here's a little demonstration of what it might look like at, in its natural environment once it's been created and printed and placed into where it's meant to live. This is at our annual convention, Autodesk University, where folks were able to basically test it out. There's a set of stairs on the other side, and we allowed attendees to walk across it. And I'll switch my screen one more time. to Fusion 360. So here is the bridge itself. For those of you who are familiar, Fusion's a really great tool. It's probably not something you'll use for this challenge, but if you ever are in more of a manufacturing realm, Fusion is a great tool to use because it has these different environments that you can leverage. So different than other CAD tools where you just design. Within Fusion, you can design, you can take it into the simulate space and understand, is it going to withstand 10 people standing on it the way that it's been designed? If it can't, then you want to redesign it. You can also take it into the manufacturer space and understand, now that I've created it this way, will it be printable? Will it be millable? Will I be able to use the existing technology and manufacturing equipment that I have to make the thing that I've designed? So this was a big part of us proving out the workflow. We didn't want to just design a very interesting looking alien-like bridge. We wanted to make something that was truly, that we could truly make. So what you're seeing here is the bridge itself, and then also in the gray below, we needed a way to transport the bridge, obviously, because we couldn't just move it around by picking it up since it's 5 meters long. So we created a transport stand for a couple of forklifts to move it around. And then, of course, for safety purposes, we designed some handrails for the top. So this is the bridge. It's a long 2-year journey that we were a part of, but it's great to see that it actually came to fruition, and it was a great project to be a part of. So yeah, appreciate you listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
That was awesome, Brandon. It's the bridge that keeps on giving and providing
Exactly.
inspiration to the next generation of designers. So cool, Brandon. Thank you. Khalil, any questions?
Yes, it says, what was the process like when making the supports?
So the supports, I'm guessing, are the supports on the inside was made in a couple of different ways, because the way that we designed it in the CAD, in the actual 3D model, was one method, so that we can basically realize and simulate how it would behave. But because this was a early stage proof of concept, the way that we would translate that CAD model to the manufacturing tool pathing wasn't yet possible. So we had to make some assumptions from going from the CAD model to the tool pathing instructions. But we essentially use an FFF or FDM slicer software and provided it with nearly exact parameters to give it that same infill. So we designed the gyroid in CAD, and then we created the same parameters for it to be designed in the slicer software. And if you don't know what slicer software is, that's a little more on the 3D printing side, which I'm happy to talk more about offline if anyone's interested. So if I threw any words out there that you're not familiar with,
I could
my
follow
apologies.
it, Brandon. So
Yeah.
Other questions, Khalil?
That was our only question.
Awesome. Well, and Brandon did say with the, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can just be here, or the Brady Bunch now. So I think the kids have no idea what that is. But, when Brandon had said that with Fusion, you could, you don't necessarily you can use the bridge as a starter model for your design, or maybe you're just inspired by the design of the bridge, and maybe you do want to go into Fusion, to work on some part of your design, and then, move that, because you can move a file. Brandon, you can move a file from Fusion into Revit, correct?
Yeah, it's probably just a file export.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure which file type, but that should be definitely doable.
Yeah. So you can move between, and you young people have ideas for workflows. Like last year, someone they used Tinkercad, but then they used photo editing software to change, they knocked out the background in Tinkercad and then added to it kind of looked like a rendering, even though they were just kind of using kind of Photoshop or Canva or something for the design. So please, think about these interesting creative workflows that we haven't, as adults haven't thought of yet. I'm sure that you have lots of ideas. Any other questions, Khalil, before we sign off?
Looks like we just got, somebody said, what is the materials and how to simulate the 3D printed, hold on. Okay, let me reread it. Yeah, it says, what is the materials and how to simulate the 3D printed thing, which is not a full body, but a layer by layer thing, which can be weaker. So can you rephrase your question in the chat? I think that might make it a little easier to answer.
I think I get part of it. So the material was a recycled PETG, which I don't remember what that stands for, but it was a recycled polymer, thermoplastic, and the method of simulating it is a good one because different than other designs. If you were to mill something out of a large block of aluminum, it has the same mechanical properties in every direction. But when you're 3D printing something, obviously you have all these layers stacked together, and the strength in a single layer is different than the strength between those layers. So we did have to make some calculated assumptions around what type of strength was happening between those layers. So we did a number of different material tests through some external providers, and then we basically took those maximum yield strengths and used those as our minimum when we ran the simulations. So we made sure that we included a good safety factor to be sure that it's never going to exceed that safety factor, which means it's never going to exceed the yield strength of the bond between the materials. So we do have to take assumptions in that case, but we can always include as much mathematics and testing as possible when we do.
Somebody asks, is there a preference for entries that actually design a new bridge from scratch, or is it totally okay to use your bridge and apply it to my community?
It's totally okay to use your bridge and to use our bridge and apply it to your community. So whether you use the starter model or don't use the starter model, that's not a judging criteria. We would love to see you actually use the starter model in a unique way, or maybe even like add to it, or make it your own in some way as well. I saw a question too about someone asked, is there generative design software at Autodesk? I feel like Brandon, you can answer part of that question. I can answer the second part.
Yeah, so I might have glazed over that briefly, but the bridge was designed with Autodesk's generative design solution. So we essentially worked with Dara, the company, to understand what are the, what's the design criteria that this bridge has to withstand. And they fed us with a couple of numbers that for the entire surface, there's a certain pressure that it has to withstand at its most extreme. So we use that pressure to apply on the top surface of the bridge. And our main constraint was making sure that it could connect at that 45-degree angled build plate. So we had the top layer of the deck, that build plate, and then we allowed the software to connect those two together. And that's how we end up with the shape that we have.
And within Revit and also within Format, you can use Dynamo within your design, which is a generative design kind of tool and kind of visual scripting language within Revit and in Format, and I think in Revit as well. There's also out-of-the-box scripts from Dynamo that are like, if you're doing something that's repetitive, like in a building, so like something like making like steps or stairs, or like the mullions, like in a curtain wall, like window, for example, there's scripts for that. So you can actually use, that Dynamo is included as part of like the educational offering as well within both Revit and Format. So you can play with computational design as well as you are building your model. And someone asked about chat, is there anything else to think about? One of the things that, like when I was watching Michael's presentation, how he had his early sketches. So he's like got hand-drawn sketches. He's got, 2D, kind of visualizations. He did the physical prototype. He did, he went through his process and showed step by step. I would say that that's one of the things that's just really important, is kind of showing your process throughout the way in various stages, I think is something that's super important for the judges. I think that's it. Is that it for questions, Cleo?
There was one more. It says, is it important to create a physical model like Michael did?
It's a way of increasing your chances of winning one of the top prizes. So we did want to make sure in giving the top prizes that we also wanted to encourage students who are at, vocational schools, for example, that are kind of more interested in like building, actual physical things. So that's why we made a category for the top prizes. One is best CAD model or BIM or CAD model, and then one is best physical prototype. So you don't have to build a physical prototype. However, Michael did, and he won for best physical prototype. So, and then we had a winner for his CAD model was super impressive as well. So, but yeah, you don't have to, you do have to use Autodesk software in some way. So if you're building a physical model, you might just play around with some ideas in Tinkercad and share how you used the software in order to ideate and to think about what your physical model would look like. Other questions?
That was the last of the questions.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited that the students tonight, and I think there's some educators here too, are just super engaged throughout and asking really great questions. And I also just want to thank our guests tonight, particularly Michael, who he's on a service learning project for college in a different state, and he joined us for this webinar. So thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your insight and your knowledge with students, and Brandon and Paulette and Khalil for being such an awesome chat vocalist tonight. And thank you. So good luck with the contest. We cannot wait to see what you create. We are so excited to see it. And also, if you have questions, makeitreal@autodesk.com is an email address that you can email in order to ask questions specifically about the contest. So that's in a couple places on the pages, but I'll say it one more time. Makeitreal@autodesk.com is one way that you can reach us. So this will be up on YouTube. So if you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, please do so. It'll be up on the ACE YouTube channel. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see what you make. And we're going to say goodnight for now. So take care, everyone. Thank you again, Michael. All right, take care. Bye.